For inquire, I pray thee, of the former age, and prepare thyself to the search of their fathers. In other words, look, it was something your father did or your grandfather did. When you were in the womb, before you were born, fella, this came on you because your great-grandfather, did you ever know your great-grandfather had red hair and a purple nose and was a drunkard? That's why you're like this, you know. That's where you got your temper from. Oh, God, I better get delivered from my purple-nosed, red-haired grandfather. But how can I? He's been dead and buried and cremated. Ah, well, what you do is you have to go and you have to confess your grandfather's sin and say, dear God, my grandfather had red hair and a purple nose and was a drunkard. And I just got my temper from him. And people believe that. And do you know something? If you believe all that rubbish, you might end up with red hair and a purple nose and still have your temper. That's what the chap called Bildad says. You know, you've got to look back. Then look what he goes on to say. Awful thing. Verse 20. Look at it. Verse 20. Look at the contradiction that he brings. Now you need to look at it in your Bible. Behold, God will not cast away a perfect man, neither will he help the evildoers. God's not going to cast away a perfect man, Job. Nor is he going to help the evildoers. You lost everything, Job, full of boils, having a rough time. God's not going to cast away a perfect man. In other words, Job, the reason you're where you are is because you sinned. But he didn't. There was a battle going on in heaven, and the only reason we know there was a battle going on in heaven and there was a war in heaven is because of the first 2 chapters of the book of Job. The rest of it only mentions God. It never mentions the devil. But the devil's come along to do a lot of work and a lot of imaginations. In fact, God says, I've given Job into your hand to do so whatever what you will, but don't you touch his life. But you can go as far, but you can't take his life. Now, Job didn't realize that what was happening was a fight over the integrity of his life, and that it was a fight for his mind. And the 3 friends that come along that the devil kindly sent to counsel him. I remember when I was talking to someone recently. My wife and I went through a tough period in our lives. I came down to the south of England and I stayed in a certain building. My wife became ill. My 2 kids got whooping cough. My daughter, I was told, Sarah, would be a vegetable for the rest of her life. I had to resign my job because I found that the chairman of the company where I was on the board of directors was actually embezzling money, and none of the Christians that I fellowshiped with at the time would believe he was an embezzler. They thought I was wrong, not him. Of course, it was found out later he had embezzled a few shillings. But not that they ever got it right or confessed it. But there I was, and I came back from the hospital after having heard from the specialist that my daughter was likely to be a vegetable for the rest of her life. And I was upset. Now, how many in those circumstances will get upset? Well, I got upset. All right, I was upset. Now, that's normal, isn't it? See, I'm flesh and blood. Whatever you thought. I bleed like anyone else. And I was really upset. And I walk out with this so-called pastor, and I walk outside into the garden with him, and he turns round to me, and the words of comfort that issued from his mouth were, well, you want to thank God you're not like Job, all his family died. And I tell you, that was a pastor. God deliver us from such heathen men. And that was what Job had. He had people that would come to him and tell him It serves you right. You've got your just deserts. Just what you needed. This is God's chastening hand. You thought you were righteous. God blessed you. God did this. Now you're really shown in your true colours. See? That's the devil. The devil tries to bring us down by telling us we deserve what we get. Everything. Look in chapter 4, verse 7. Here's poor Job, sick. Here's poor Job, having lost his family, his kids, and here's a comforter come to talk to him. Remember, I pray thee, whoever perished being innocent. Or where were the righteous cut off? Job, tell me, can you ever remember any person who was innocent ever getting something happened to them? Job, when were the innocent ever cut off, or the righteous cut off? It's your fault, fellow. You've stepped over the mark somewhere. God said Job's a righteous man, upright in all his ways. The devil's servants say, you got what you deserve. Have you ever noticed that come to your heart and life? The thoughts come to you and the devil suggests to you, oh no, these things happen because God's angry. No, they just happen, and Job was perfectly innocent. Now, natural reason tells you he wasn't innocent. It must have been something he'd done, but the truth is God says, no, he's righteous in all his ways. He's upright in all his ways. Consider my servant Job is perfect. Now, God's saying that to the devil. He's throwing it in the teeth of the devil. And so the devil sends people to try and convince Job that he isn't what he knew he was. I'll tell you. I just want to compare what God says and man says. It's interesting, isn't it?